Hello and welcome. My name is Zaffar Iqbal, and you are watching the Mojo Story. Now, there is a disturbing trend of online abuse and threats faced by cricketers and their families, particularly after the recent World Cup final, that the match at Ahmedabad. So, following Australia's triumph, Indian fans reportedly took to social media to express their disappointment, targeting players like Travis Head and Glenn Maxwell. The intense passion for cricket, especially in countries like India, is being called into question as fans grapple with the emotional aftermath of significant match. To discuss this, we're joined by sports journalist Sharda Ugra. Uh, Thanks so much for joining us. What's your first reaction to this online abuse that cricketers and their families reportedly face, particularly after significant match like the World Cup final?
It's terribly disappointing. It's very disheartening to see it, but I'm not surprised. A few years ago, Lady Gaga said something which I've never forgotten on a program. She said, social media is the toilet of the internet. And when you see abuse of this kind, it actually looks like that. It looks like literally the toilet of the internet is there with everyone, speaking basically filth. And this kind of fandom, it's almost become a habit of a certain kind of fan, because it's okay to abuse people online anonymously. And it's a terrible it's a terrible display. I think Indian cricket and Indian cricket fans that are largely a populace that is generous and understanding and knows their sport better than and history of all countries that play cricket more than I think cricket fans in some parts of the world. They are almost like now in their name this has been committed, and I think there has to be some kind of backlash from that, from the real fan community that there is, because these are just emotional and filthy responses to people who think they can abuse and speak badly of anybody, not just women and children but anybody. And it's dreadful. I've seen some of those messages on Instagram and on Twitter/X, and they are just it's gives Indian cricket fans such a bad name.
Absolutely. And you raised a very important point that the genuine fans who know the sport, who know that is a better team on that particular day, that wins the match, that win the game. They understand it. And perhaps they could counter this sort of abuse, online abuse, those who know the game and, set the things right. Otherwise, it gives a bad name to the fan community and to country in a way.
Absolutely. The Indian cricket fan puts up with a lot of rubbish when it comes to having access to stadiums and so on. The genuine fan appreciates players from everywhere, appreciates a fine performance. But the point is that in this sort of IT cell version of these people that are there everywhere, super jingoistic, super patriotic, super nationalistic, call it what you may, when a match doesn't go their way, for them to be sort of chest thumping, that this is their natural response. And I think the fans need to find, you do hear people saying, I'm so embarrassed, I'm apologizing, we are not like this.
Yeah.
But the volume of it is so terrible that it's very hard for them to counter. There needs to be, I think you need for your cricketing community to step forward and say, formally, this is very bad, we don't you cannot speak for us in this way.
Right, and it has a significant impact on the mental well-being of the athletes and their families when they come across such abuse. They won the match, they performed to their best capacity. They deserve appreciation rather than abuse. All the sports lovers would appreciate their effort. It doesn't matter they're from India or from Australia, but they played to their best capacity and they won the match. How does it impact the mental well-being of an athlete? And when they're not just the athlete, but their families are also targeted.
Yeah, you're right, Zafar. This happens everywhere. It'll happen in when, say, there's a T20 series that's starting tomorrow. It'll happen in that as well. And it will be, this time, it will be Indian players and their families and their children that will get abused. So it's like that for a particular kind of keyboard warrior. There is no such thing as good behavior. Everyone is open season. It's the anonymity that gives them this power. And the mental well-being of athletes, because there's a big balance between your brand image and all the rest of it that goes on. That's why you have to be on social media, and the consequence of what you get, it must be very, very hard, particularly for younger players, younger athletes that are just coming through. I know that, I think Maxwell's wife has also responded on social media, and it's just dreadful as to how are you able to cope with this kind of abuse. I am not on social media for this particular reason. I see no point in being there. It's not a good space at all. I know that there will be companies that will say you're an influencer and you can make money, but it's really not worth the kind of abuse that people, particularly people in public life, like athletes, like film stars, like politicians, whatever, people like that. They really get the worst of it. Or anyone who has an opinion to state about it. Women get the worst of it as well if they have something to say about anything in public life, anything that's happening in the news. It's a dreadful, it's a terrible space.
Multiplied all this abuse. But do you think that social media platforms should also bear some responsibility, or that is not possible now?
I definitely think social media platforms should bear some responsibility, but they don't. There are these large corporations where you have these, where you have these people that are, talking about that. Oh, we are all for free speech, but no, for them, free speech is we are all for everybody abusing everyone. I definitely think social media platforms that make money of these people are able to put in safeguards and be able to stop this kind of thing. It's very much the tech world's responsibility. They've created this great open platform, and all we are seeing is, like Lady Gaga says, the toilet of the internet is coming forth. I mean, I don't know if you want to own a company that's called a toilet, other than if it's making commodes or something like that. There is enormous responsibility on them, but they take none of it. If it will happen in the United States or in England, they'll act. If it happens outside that, they don't care. We've seen that in political discussions as well, when there is abuse directed, and when there is people are attacked and so on. Then all the thing will happen. Ki, Acha, humne United States mein we have shut down somebody's account, but in India and Pakistan and everywhere else, and in the global South, you can say whatever you want to whoever. I think the companies are completely responsible for letting loose this kind of monster.
They, the family members also getting targeted. Maxwell's wife, Veena Raman, who has her roots in South India, she's replied to all those who are abusing and threatening her. She said, "Take a chill pill and direct the outrage towards more important world issues." She wrote on her Instagram story. There is a limit to everything. When this abuse, this online abuse starts getting multiplied and directed towards a particular individual or their families, they would obviously react. And that is the sort of reaction that we're seeing from Maxwell's wife.
Yes, so Veni Raman has replied in a way that's right. If you're outraged, look at the things that are important. This is a cricket match. Someone won, somebody lost. There is injustice going on in this world of a degree that we cannot comprehend how it is allowed, and how it's, and people are just don't pay any attention to it. Children are being killed, hospitals are being bombed. There's no out. Can't you direct your outrage that way? This is just a sports event. Eventually, there are no life or death consequences in this kind of in this kind of a contest. So there's a sense of proportion that I think tends to go a bit crazy. You're thinking, are all these people the ones who had bet money on India? That's why they're going crazy. We don't know, but that's no reason. The cricketers don't ask you to bet money on the outcomes. It's your fault if you do. Blame yourself, abuse yourself, stand in front of a mirror and shout abuse at yourself. Don't take it out on someone who, particularly if you are anonymous and no one can get back at you. There are no consequences for your abuse if no one can get back at you. We've seen how even in the case, it's so difficult to file a police complaint with cybercrime when it comes to abuse like this. So if this is in another country, how is the perpetrator of this kind of speech going to be punished? They're not going to be punished. So it's a very, very unfair, and it's a terrible situation. It's almost like a product of our times, that we are so hooked onto social media that we will put up with anything that comes out of it, which is just absolutely unacceptable.
About a complaint, a police complaint perhaps cannot be filed. Do you think there can be legal consequences when all of this is happening? And that needs to be emphasized and focused upon, this threatening behavior online, targeting athletes and their family members. When there is a threat of legal consequences, then perhaps this thing would come down.
You would think so, but the legal consequences need to be carried through. You can't say we'll just put a case on you. So you put a case on you and you're away in jail, and it works like that because it's come from your account. If your account gets shut, if it starts with your account getting shut, that's a cause. If you talk like that, your account's going to get shut. But that will not happen. Then someone has to make the complaint. So is Vinnie Raman going to make the complaint against these people? Who is she going to complain to? How fast are they going to act? We've seen in some cases people have just backed off the moment the cops have come to their door. But in most, people don't, there's no bandwidth for them to follow through on the amount of abuse that they're getting. There needs to be, maybe cricket authorities need to put something in motion and say that, look, this is how we're going to deal with this. And it seems an impossible thing because social media is so vast and so anonymous that you're able to get away by doing this. I mean, there has to be, cyber crime has to also be treated as seriously as crimes that are committed on people when you're attacked in public and so on. It is a mental health issue when you have to face this kind of abuse, and particularly for athletes and for people in public life, it's pretty much non-stop.
Mechanism into place. That's a very right way of dealing with this situation. Perhaps something need to be done. It cannot be just brushed aside. But I was thinking that it's not just always the players of the opposition teams that are on the target. It's even the players from from India, from own country, that become the targets at times. People make their analysis that had this player come to bat, had that bowler bowled, captain made those mistakes, and then they start targeting those players. And the next match, when they do well and they start appreciating, this is the culture, this is the situation that we are in.
Yeah, this is true. So this is what is called topi gumana, that your topi will turn around depending on victory and defeat. So I think having a debate and saying so and so should have played and so and so should have played, that's fine. I think that's okay. That's all right. Once you start abusing people in this and you target them and you say, we've seen what happens to Indian players. Indian players are literally almost the first line of attack to start with. But it just this is fan mentality. This happens everywhere in sport. The only thing is when it turns into something that is vile and that is absolutely terrible, then you've got to be able to find a way to stop it. Then there has to be some check to it. There has to be some I don't know. I mean, it's become so huge, and the anonymity of it is so fantastic that I can call anybody anything, and no one will know who it is. You can VPN and disguise your computer net wherever you're sending it from, and all the rest of it. So this is where we are. I think it's the tech companies, the responsibility is with them, but how do they start and where do they start or something like this? And this whole culture of abuse is something that is just growing, has just come into conversation over political debate in the United States and in India and in other countries, and now it's just literally become like this virus that has spread everywhere. Previously, Twitter was, I was told, was not such a offensive kind of space.
And clearly, this might affect the willingness of the athletes to engage with fans in the long run. They would not want to engage with them. They know that they're going to suffer criticism. They're going to face, even if they win a cricket match. Fans can appreciate you, they can criticize you, but at the end of the day, criticism is going to come from some quarter. Maybe not from their home crowd, but for some other quarter. How are they going to engage with the fans, in the future?
Zaffar, it's a very interesting space that athletes are now, because social media is their main way of communicating with the fans that adore them, the fans that love them, and the fans that are willing to target them. So they are literally caught in this bind. How much of social media do we use, and how much of that means that we are going to get abused in return? I think, but what can take place is that the whole sort of love that Indian cricket has, for the fact that it generates so much money, the fans are so enthusiastic, vibrant, all the rest of it. After some time, you may think, why should I play here? Let me go and play in a place where I don't have to deal with this kind of abuse all the time. We haven't yet created created the alternative to an IPL universe that there is now. But there are so many 2020 leagues coming on. I mean, what's to say that the Indian cricket will sort of lose a little bit of its shine? You don't want to deal with this on a daily basis. It's almost like in, say, what would happen in the 1960s. There was racial abuse that was happening of African American athletes in America. It's like exactly like that, but it's in a different way, in a different tone, and in a different context as well. So why would you want to suffer something like this? Why would you want to put yourself through something like this beyond the particular point of the amount that you earn, your livelihood and connection, things like that?
Right. The point is that it is mainly linked to cricket. When we talk about other sports, this is not the case in those sports, but this is particularly about cricket.
This is about cricket and these mass sports. Sort of, it'll be about cricket. It'll be about football. In club football is also full of sort of racist abuse and vile accusations at players and all the rest of it. And the reason why India has got such a bad name in this is because our numbers are so many. So if it's racial abuse, or I'm sorry, if it's abuse, online abuse in England, it might be X. In India, automatically, because of our population of fans and numbers, it becomes 10X. So it just sort of amplifies, and it just increases, and the numbers just escalate. They're huge. And but in all popular sports, you will see this kind of really abuse of players and so on. In cricket particularly, because the Indian fan demographic is so big that it'll look like it's like this tsunami of abuse that's coming all the time at players, at their families. I mean, the whole thing is the players will say, it's fine, we can take the abuse, leave our families out of it. That's the thing. So it's kind of crossed the line where it's really it's sordid, it's tawdry, it's just terrible as to what people think that they should say in public towards a woman or a child or whoever is the partner of the player or so on. It's just absolutely nonsensical.
Right, and it's been happening in the past also that cricketers, particularly in the subcontinent, have been facing the wrath of the fans back home when they lose a game or lose a series. They go back. The problem is that how will you deal with the people there? They make them heroes when they come and win a World Cup. But when they lose, then they have to face this. But now, when it crosses the line and it also touches upon their families, then there is a cause of worry. I think if it is not controlled at this point in time, this may well escalate more in the future.
You're right. Like you're saying that, say before social media, fans would burn effigies. They'll sort of attack a house. So a player is able to go and protect their family and say, look, you need to get out and make sure that there's a police person. And always the police would help and say, okay, your house is fine, protected. Don't worry, we look after your family. Because you can single out the people. Here, you cannot single out the people. Who are these people? Either you have who are these people that are saying these things against against cricketers and their families and so on. There's no identifying who these people are. These people could come up to you on the road and throw acid at you. You don't know. So that's the kind of society at this point where it is so victory and defeat in India particularly sort of becomes a sign of sort of national self-esteem or otherwise, which it need not be. That's not the thing. Like Glenn Maxwell's wife said, focus your attention and outrage on something else. And there's lots in India to focus our attention and outrage on. And it's reached a point where it might come somebody in America, because there's no gun control. Athletes can get shot. The same thing can happen in India. There's no knowing. This is like a crazed mindset. It's really like a crazed mindset that's there at the moment. Is just on the computers, and we don't know when it will come out onto the streets, and someone will get attacked.
Yes, in fact, that's the point here. That athletes, cricketers, sports people, they are at the end of the day giving their best in the ground, putting their best efforts and capacities. They don't expect and they don't deserve such sort of a treatment in the end by the fans. Rather than appreciating, targeting them and their families, this is a tendency that has to be curbed. It's a trend that needs to be stopped. Particularly for cricket loving, cricket crazy nation like India, it's all the more important when there's so many cricket matches happening, so many sort of international cricket matches, one day, Test cricket, T20, IPL. It's always a game on. Clearly, something needs to be done about it and thought about it, that how this tendency can be curbed. But thanks so much, Sharda Ugra, for joining us. That's all the time we have on today's show. And thanks for watching the Mojo Story.
Thank you, sir.
Mojo Story has always made a commitment to its viewers to go to where the story is. And as you can see here, we are at the epicenter of the Israel war on Gaza. We are right at the front line, about 1 mile from the Gaza Strip, as the Israeli military gets ready with its tanks and its gunners to begin its final frontal assault that will take troops into Gaza. As we said, we are not like other organizations. We believe in giving you all sides of the story objectively and as much as possible from the ground. And that's exactly what we're doing here, covering the biggest global story today from the epicenter of the war zone. So please, we need your support. Support us, become a Mojo member, subscribe to us, spread the word, and thank you for your support.